So today we will look at a couple of functions related to date and time and how to mix function calls in a single formula. So let's create a what I will call a student information sheet, and I'm going to select some cells, merge them, center them, and I'm going to type student information sheet, and then I'm going to write here serial number, then I'm going to write here name, and I'm going to type here date of birth, right? So type in names of 10 students. So I'm going to use some spaces to show you what the date function is. So the date function is something that receives three parameters, and if you start with an equal sign and write down date, and then you use the opening bracket, you see that date is a function which can receive different variables or cell names or stuff like that, and even functions. So this is the first example that we are looking at, where you are mixing functions together in a formula. How we are mixing the functions is that you see here in the tooltip that it says that if you want to use the date function, after opening bracket you need to mention the year followed by a comma. So this is the opening bracket and this is the comma. In between, I could have written like 1990 using keyboard, or I could have written 1980 or 85 or any year I like. But instead, what I have done is I have used a function that all of us are already familiar with, and that function is something which receives a range of numbers, and it returns a random number between those limits of numbers, right? So but in this scenario, things are a bit different. Why? Because the randbetween function will generate a random number which is between 1990 and 1995, and it is going to generate the result. And all the things that you can see here highlighted, all this text is going to be replaced by that value which this between function has generated. So this year part will eventually receive a random year which is between 1990 and 1995. Similarly, you see that then it requires a comma, and between two commas it says you should mention the month. So the month could be mentioned using 5. 5 would be like for May, 7 would be for July, and stuff like that. But instead of writing those numerical you can say month numbers, what I did, I again used a rand between function which generated a random month number between 1 and 12, so which is so there are 12 months, so we need a number between 1 and 12, and we will get that. And similarly, the last parameter which is required by the date function is day. So to generate day, I have not I didn't take a chance that probably if the random number in this area was 2 February, then the random number here would be really problematic. If it was 29 or 30 or 31, then it would not be valid for February. That's why I wrote between 1 and 28, which would be valid for 3 out of 4 Februaries, because the leap year is going to still be problematic. If it was a leap year, then 27 would be the right maximum. But, anyways, so do you guys understand this formula that I have written, which uses 4 functions, and 3 of which are generating values and feeding the values to the outer function, which is the date function? Does it make sense? Good. How do you fix these values? It will be fixed in the same way that we fixed the values previously, right? So you select, let me show that again to you. So I first of all generated all the random date of births, between 1990 and 1995, and I then selected all of them. Then I used Control C to copy all of these. Then I went to edit menu and paste unformatted text and just clicked OK. And now the values are fixed over here. And to verify whether these were correctly copied, I went to format cells and I changed the format to something that looks something like this, or maybe like this. And you see that it correctly shows that those were in date formats even now. So May 5, 91, September 28, 94. So these are truly random date of births for all these, random people. Age in years. So I should be able to calculate the age of a person using a function or a formula. So First of all, let's try this function. Here's a function called today, and it doesn't require any parameter, so I didn't mention any parameter. And if you look at the tooltip over here, you see that it doesn't require a parameter because it simply returns to you the date that is your operating system has set for today. It just checks the operating system. So if it was wrongly set, it will fetch the wrong date, but mostly in our operating systems the date is correctly set. So the today function is going to fetch today's date. But if you open this document tomorrow, when you will open this document tomorrow, this date will be changed accordingly. So tomorrow the same spreadsheet will say 6/15/21 if you have written this today function. Got it? So now, so I would like to use this date and this date to calculate the age of the person. How do I do that? Let's try that out. So when you will write this formula, you should not get an error. But if you had tried the today function in the same cell, just like I did, you will get wrong result, because using the today function in the same cell and then using this function that I've written over here, the format of this cell would have already been changed to date format. So instead, what you need to do, you need to go to the number format and then go to this first option and then click OK, and it will show you, this function will show you the age of the person starting from their date of birth up to today's date automatically. And I'm going to autofill this. So this is the function. Any question? This first part is the from the opening brackets to the comma is the starting date, and then the today function supplies this function, the years function, with today's date, which is the ending date. And this means that we are trying to calculate using calendar years, and calendar years means that it will take into account all the leap years and stuff like that. And now I'm going to type here age in days, just to make you guys familiar with this days function. And then you write the opening bracket. Now this is opposite, the order is reverse. First you mention the last date and then you mention the starting date. So here I'm going to use the today function, and then I'm going to use the starting date, and it should show me the age of a person in days, in number of days. So now we can autofill this and we will see that we get age of all the people in days. Now I'm going to tell you guys a bit about sorting. Sorting is something which is a very helpful technique. So let me select all of these columns, or these rows and columns, and I go to this sort button. There are different options like a sort button, then ascending sort or descending sort. But the problem is, which column will it use to sort ascending order? This one, this one, this one, or this one? So we don't know that. Right now, our name is already sorted in ascending order with in alphabets like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R up to Z, right? So, but I would like to sort all of these using their age in years, so that these 27-year-old, they come on top, and then 28, 29, and then 30. So I'm going to select this sort button. So you can go to data menu and then sort. Select column D. So you can go to column D, and then you mention ascending or descending. So I'm interested in ascending order, meaning that the values should be increasing from smaller towards higher, and press OK, and I see that it has sorted. Of course, it has sorted this column, but it has shifted the other rows which were in front of this cell, respective cells. So the Abdullah was the first person, but now it has become the eighth person, right? So this is how you can see that you can sort the data according to any column you feel like should be used to sort your data. And then I'm going to do some calculations on this. For example, what is the average age? So the average age, I'm going to write over here equal sign average, and then I'm going to select this complete range, and I'm going to close this, and I can see that the average age for this is 28.3. Another thing that we could do, or we may want to do, is that we don't want to see this decimal place 0.3 value. So there are two ways to get rid of this 0.3. The first is right click this, go to format cells, and I can go to number and then this first number format which doesn't show any decimal with it. For example, this format shows a decimal. I don't want that, so I can go to this and it will get rid of the format, sorry, the decimal place. So now there is no decimal place. So this was the first way, and the second way I'm going to apply on what we call the standard deviation, which is a measure of the deviation of values or the scatter of values, which of course assumes that a data set is distributed according to the Gaussian distribution. So I'm going to write here standard deviation and then the complete range. So you see that this is standard deviation. Standard deviation, as I said, is a measure of scatter of the distribution, data distribution. So let me just demonstrate to you that standard deviation, if I, for example, make this value, the last one, to 40, you see the standard deviation has gone up from 1.3 to 3.9 because it says that there are values in your data which are really apart from each other. And similarly, if I change these values to, let's say, 27, so you will see that this number has gone down from 1.3 to 0.7 almost, right? So it shows that 0.7 shows that your data is compressed together. There is not too much scatter of data, whereas 1.3 says that it is medium kind of scatter of data, and 3.9 means that it's a really scattered data. Now this thing really doesn't look very good, so I'm going to show you the second method of getting rid of these decimal points. So I'm going to write outside of this the round function, and this round function, what it does is it rounds the value, whatever value it receives in the first part before this comma, it takes that value and rounds off that value up to the number of decimal places mentioned over here. So naturally I have written 2, so it means I'm talking about 2 decimal places, and if I use Control Z, you can see it was 1.337, but if I use this function, it makes it 1.34, which is better to look at, and mostly for scientific calculations we use this round function to round off the values. And I hope you guys remember that if the last number, which is the number which is being rounded off, the number next to that will be actually vanished, or it will be gone. So if the next number is 5 or above 5, the number being rounded will be 1 more than previous, and if the next number is less than 5, the number being rounded will be kept in the same way. So 1.337 was rounded off to 1.4 because 7 was greater than 5. The thing is that what it did was that it read these two values which were the same, and then what it did was it saw these two words. The first one, there was a tie between these two things because these were same. So what the software does is it looks at the very beginning and it sees because there is no tie, G is smaller than I because G comes before I. So it sorted it like this, that G should be on top and I should be on the lower side. But you're absolutely right that if we use this thing, then it will make much more sense, because then it will be truly accurate which one is younger than which other person. So let's do that. So we go to use the E column and we press OK, and we see that this is the true you can say version. This column, I don't think it would have changed. This one, this is the same, but within the same date people, there was a lot of problem which is now corrected. All right, so I want to pick people, or want to find out the people who are in between two limits of numbers. So I'm interested in finding out people who are lying inside in some range. So there is a way of doing that. So I'm going to call it, if they were like suitable for some kind of assignment or some kind of scholarship or something. So I'm going to apply suitability for them. We will display yes or no in this column based on the criteria that the person is either 28 or 29 years old, and for rest of them the software should automatically display no. So again, there are multiple ways of achieving this, but I'm going to show you first. So the first one is you write down if. This is the if function we saw earlier. If you remember, if has 3 parameters, it accepts 2 commas and 3 parameters. So the first parameter is the condition, and if that condition or that test is true, it displays whatever is written over here. So I'm going to write here yes, and if the test is failed, it displays whatever is written over here. So I'm going to type here no, even if I haven't yet written the test. I'm going to do this. The test now is going to be slightly new to you guys, because I'm going to merge two conditions, and we only saw that if accepts only one condition. So I'm going to do here two conditions. And there are two ways to achieving two conditions in this particular example. And I'm going to write and is a function which takes two logical values, returns true if both the logical, you can say, expressions were true. So I'm going to type here if this value is greater than 27, which means 28 and above, comma, the same thing less than 30, which means 29 or below, and I'm going to close the bracket. So if function was supposed to receive a condition or a test in this first part, all of this part. So instead of writing a test directly, I have used this and function, which accepts two tests or two conditions, you can say. So I mentioned these two conditions. The first condition is that E3 should be this E3, the value in E3 should be greater than 27. And the second part is that the value in E3 should be less than 30, which will limit the options for truth output of this function to only what, 28 and 29. Only if 28 and 29, I had to write this thing D3. I'm sorry, this should have been D3, not E3. So I'm talking about D3. So if D3 is greater than 27 and at the same time less than 30, then this test will be true. And when this test will be true, the if function is going to display what? Yes. But because 27 does not fall into the criteria, and the criteria seen over here means that we're talking about numbers 28 and 29. So only if 28 or 29 was here, this criteria would be true, and then yes would be printed. So let's see if our function was correct. So I'm going to autofill, and you see that only for 28 and 29, the function has returned yes, and for 27 or 30, it has returned no. So we can change this to a table look like this, and we can change the colors.